Well, welcome back for another session of 8th grade art. Hope everybody's doing okay. And during this time of e-lessons and e-learning and remote learning, I would much rather be in a physical classroom myself. However, we are here, and so we're going to make the best of this, and we're going to keep these lessons going just as though we were in the actual physical classroom. So let's review quickly. Yesterday, actually a day or so ago, when you got the activities for the day, I attached a JPEG with this image on it there, and so then your task, and it was just the car and a bunch of squares in the background. And then previously, in the last session, went through and drew in a bunch of detail work to go in that, give it a setting and some sort of a sense of space and a reason to exist. And then today I'm going to simply quickly color it in, and then if there is time left, I will begin to set up the actual drawing paper, which will be on a 12 by 18 inch piece of drawing paper. So I used a red pen and a blue pen simply just because it shows up better on all of this, and I just thought that was the way to go about it, so I didn't have a whole bunch of black lines everywhere that I just couldn't decipher. So the red material is what I've drawn in, and also the blue material in the background. And so, as you can see, it doesn't have to be extremely complicated. It can be really quite simplistic and still look pretty good. So I am attempting to keep it simple. Now, there are some things that we probably will not be drawing on this particular project. And if you were in my 6th grade class, you will recall that we edited some of the material out. And one of the things we won't be drawing is the tread on this tire. We'll draw that tire in its shape that it really is in, but we're just not going to draw that tread portion. It's very difficult to reproduce, and it just looks strange if you don't do it, if you don't hit it right on the very first time. Back here in this shadow, we're not going to draw the shadow which is on the ground. We're going to leave that out of there. However, we will continue to draw the lower portion of this tire that's obscured by the body of the car, and we will make it round so it looks like it's sitting on the ground instead of got a flat spot on it. The same goes for, there is just a small indication of the tread on the front part of this tire. Probably going to leave that alone too. I'm just going to put a little X in it. Our grill we will do, but not right away. And then this back tire should be no problem whatsoever. So there's just a few things that I want you to edit out of this. Furthermore, when we get to it, you can draw these rims if you would like to, but there's no requirement for that. Or you can make up your own rims to go in there, and that's okay too. That's part of the whole creativity aspect of this. Okay, so for today's task is to start picking out the colors of this, and I've got my Crayola 24 count color pencil set right over here next to me in a cup where I can surveil it carefully. Some of the colors now are more used up than others. I'm sure a lot of you have a preference on your own colors. But I'm going to start kind of with the easy stuff and work my way more towards the more difficult stuff. And I'm going to try to use colors that don't get reproduced all the time over and over again. So I want a colorful, visually interesting project, as well as a realistic in some manner, so that people can recognize what they're looking at. So in my theory of always working from the largest to the smallest, the easiest to the most complex, the general to the specific, as I've said to you all many times, I'm going to get my slip sheet out here so I don't smear everything up, and I'm just going to start with the sun up here, and I'm not even going to color this completely opaquely. You know how I feel about opacity, I'm sure, but in the case of our design work and layout work, preparatory work, I don't think that's absolutely necessary. So my sun is going to be this yellow-orange color, which I did not get a chance to use much of in the previous project. So I'm pretty satisfied that I'm going to get some of these colors which have been kind of neglected are going to get now put into use in the drawing project. Okay, all of this, according to the way I drew this out yesterday, and I think I ran out of a memory card yesterday just before the last few seconds before I was able to finish up the sun over here. So that's what I did off camera, was finished up what I was working on for another couple of minutes. Now, eventually, all of this will be colored in, and like I'm saying, it's not going to be opaque. And it's reading right now on the projection screen, and perhaps what you're seeing on the video. It appears to be more of a peachy color on the video, but it is yellow-orange, and so I'm going to stick with it. And when it is, the actual project is colored, there's a high probability that this orange will be much more saturated and will be much more visible. But in this case, I'm just planning my work. Okay, that's some of the sunbeam, more of the sunbeam up in here. I like the way it disappears into that cloud. That kind of makes that corner a little more interesting, not so squared up as that corner is. Ooh, that's not, it doesn't go there, it goes here. So you got to pay attention to what you're doing. And that's one of the reasons we do a great deal of preparatory work. It kind of sticks the idea in your brain to the extent that you are able to almost visually memorize your work, and so then you spend a lot of time thinking about it when because you've got like these photographs in your brain of your work. So the planning really does go a long ways towards making a good piece of a good product. And so I find a lot of people, they try to skip the planning, and you know what? Those are the same people that probably never get the work done. I guess I've never put all that together, but if you're not going to take it serious enough, I guess, during the planning stages, there's probably no way in the world you're going to take it serious when you're in the production stage, which is, the hard part, in my opinion. So, I'm just coloring along today. And probably the world would be a better place if people just color. Alright, so I'm going to put away my yellow-orange, and I'm going to pick up, I'm going to use this light blue color, because I may want to use, there's a lot of this light blue left over from the 7th grade project, and I might want to use that sky blue in a different part of the drawing. So in between my beams of sun, of course, I'm going to have some blue skies when the sun is either coming up or going down in this particular drawing. And that's kind of one of those things, you leave that a little bit ambiguous, and it makes people want to interpret it. So just sometimes, you don't have to necessarily spell it all out for them. Let them interpret it a little bit and come to their own conclusion about what it means. And then someday they might ask you. Or they might ask you right away. Sometimes that happens too. What does this mean? What is happening? Is the sun coming up or is the sun going down? Say, well, you decide. What does it look like to you? How does it make you feel? Okay, that's the sky. I like that little scrap of sky right there, here too, underneath the sun. So I was, years ago, I was vacationing in Delaware at a place called Rehoboth Beach. And Rehoboth Beach is right on the Atlantic Ocean. So you can't really see the sun set, but you can see the sun rise. And I was up in the morning, and from the time that I saw the sun first peak up above the horizon of the Atlantic Ocean, as far east as we could see, I started timing it. And it took about 7 minutes for the sun to completely rise, where the whole disk of the sun was above the horizon of the ocean. And it just made me think about how fast things are moving in the world and in the universe. And when I've been in Pensacola vacationing as well, I have timed it when the bottom of the sun at sunset first hit the horizon, and then 7 minutes later or 8 minutes later the sun was completely gone below the horizon. So this Earth is spinning at unbelievable speeds, ladies and gentlemen. Alright, I'm going to go back to something I use a lot here, and that's my purple mountain. And people always ask me about that, but I like the purple mountain. And I'm probably going to go, let's go over, I better make it right here so people, this is one of the things I kind of do pretty frequently, and I like the the Purple Mountain effect. It's just from the song America the Beautiful more than anything. Which I think is a great song, by the way. Okay, so yeah, the Earth is spinning about 1,000 miles an hour. It's 24,000 miles around at the equator, and it takes 24 hours for it to spin. So it's about 24,000 miles. That means it's 1,000 miles an hour. In one day, the Earth will go through space 1,650,000 miles in one 24-hour period. So we're spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, and we're moving through space at whatever 1,650,000 divided by 24 is. That's how many miles an hour we're flying. The Earth is flying through space. So it's, well, here's a mind number for you. Now it's also kind of important not to color these colors in on the worksheet real dark. We are going to be drawing these lines back over top of it in order to be able to draw it more accurately when we reproduce it on the larger paper. So if you really bear down hard and get real opaque with the coloring of the worksheet, then you're probably going to have trouble seeing your grid lines once we start the actual drawing of the project. So my advice to you there is, you know, we want the colors to be figured out, and I'm figuring them out myself right now, but I don't want it colored so darkly that you can't see your squares. And you'll be working at home, and you won't have the advantage of my attention right in front of you, and so as a result of that, you may find that it's a little difficult to know what you have to do if you run into problems. So in this case, I would say color it fully, but not opaquely, in a manner that you can't see the grid lines, because we're going to go back over top of the grid lines and boost them up a little bit, bold them up so that we can see them clearly. I really am liking my color selections here already. Okay, and in my design project I also use the 3 mountains as well, so that's one of the things I do frequently here. I thought about putting some smoke coming out of the chimney too, but I've decided not to do that. Although I'm not, you know, I may still. Sometimes, you know, you ponder an idea long enough and it finds its way into your work. Alright, so I'm just working on the larger areas first, so we get that greater sense of completion, quit more quickly, and then sweat the details at the end. And when we draw it too, we'll probably draw it in, if you're drawing, you know, with me and you're doing the project the way I'm doing it. Now if you're doing it the way you want to do it, that's okay too, as long as it's based on this particular worksheet. So whatever your background looks like is going to be different than this right here, perhaps. However, this is an easy way to get a sense of space to it, make it look visually interesting, give it some movement, because it's really about the car, but the car and the background together work in tandem to make a nicer piece of work. Okay, I'm going now to my light brown, so this mountain over here will be light brown, and that'll look good against that orange one of these babies when they're all colored in. So yeah, part 2. We're making good progress here. Day 1, we simply just laid out our work a bit, did some preparatory sketching on it, and it's really a good idea to always spend some time sketching out your ideas. And that's the whole purpose of these worksheets. It's not to make you miserable. It's to give you a direction once you start going here. Young people many times just don't know yet what it is they're attempting to draw or paint, and so as an instructor and a teacher, it's kind of my job to help you find that. Okay, I'm going to use gray for my clouds. Swirly grayish color in there. Try to maybe give it some texture when I do the actual coloring of the clouds in the background right there. Now technically, if you've ever really been up in an airplane or you've seen the clouds, you've looked at them really observantly, you'll notice that they're not really one uniform color. They are all many different colors, and there's highlights in them, and sometimes they almost look like water rolling along. If you've been in an airplane and looked down at the clouds, it looks like an ocean sometimes. But you know, the tops of the clouds are usually lit, whereas the bottoms of the clouds are usually shadowed. That's if the sun is up. Now, if the sun is going down, many times the bottoms of the clouds are lit and the tops of the clouds are shadowed. So, you know, depending on what time of day you want your viewer to understand it is, I guess you could indicate that through the clouds. But if it's, you know, like high noon, the bottom of the clouds will be shadowed. But in this case, I'm just scrubbing in some gray to fill in the space, because it looks pretty good against all that. I'm looking at the projection screen. It's coming along pretty nicely there. I'm pretty much, it seems like I'm just working my way from the top to the bottom. And I am kind of saving some of the work that I'm doing here for, you know, the car, just to see what kind of colors you develop here as I work my way down the drawing. So now I'm going to go to that fence, and I think I'm going to use some light brown on my fence on this one up close, and then in the background I may use a different type of brown. And probably this will need to be ultimately outlined in black, but I think this is a nice color here for this. And you know, that helps us dial in the colors that we want the car to be, and you know, these are I'm just kind of trying to go with understandable, relatable colors in this case, that make people understand that my car is sitting in front of a house and a fence, a wooden fence by the way, and that there's some mountains and something happening with the sun in the background. Now, back in here, I'm going to use the tan colored pencil, so it's slightly looking a little bit different. It has a variation to it, but it's still a brown, but a variation of it. And it looks like I've got a little bit of foliage or something there, kind of along the foliage is like grassy material along the bottom there, so I'm going to go ahead and hit that with some of the, where's my jade green, my army green. That'd be a good color for it. So I'm going to scrub that in there, indicating that that's all like lawn or something in there, right? And it hangs over what appears to be into the driveway, I suppose that's what that is. So, you know, it only takes like 2 class periods to come up with a good idea and get it set up to the point where you can actually begin making a legit piece of artwork out of it. Just trying to do it on the fly, there might be some people can do it, but I've made a lot of artwork and I've supervised a lot of projects, and there's not very many people that can do it well. Let's just say that. There might be some people, but I don't know very many of them, I guess. Most people ask me how I get the results I get, and I just explain to them I get it through planning. Everybody hates that. Okay, let's see here. We're back to probably having to use some gray again, because this is going to be like the driveway, I suppose. So, you know, and the thing is, you can always make it darker, but man, if you try to make it, you use a dark color and you try to make it lighter, it usually doesn't work either. So, I think I am going to go with the gray here. Now, I know a lot of you may have your own colored pencils, and some of you may have colored pencils that are silver colored, and I mean, you may have all types of colored pencils, and that's okay with me for you to use those things, especially on a drawing. I am going to ask you to avoid using black on any of this except for the rubber portions of the tires and maybe some detail outlining, okay? if you use black too aggressively, you're just going to end up with everything will be dark, especially if you color the car black and then the tires black and there's something black in the background. You're just going to end up with a bit of a mess on your hands. Now, this, though, is the sidewalk. So I'm going to have to bear down hard on the gray colored pencil right here because I want that to read as concrete. Visually, you know, register in people's minds as concrete. And in fact, just to make sure that people understand it's concrete, I might put myself a little drain, storm drain right there. Alright, so, let's see, moving on here. What do I got to do next? Let's go into this house. What color would a house be? What color should it be? Brown, red, mahogany. Oh, well, here's something we can do right now. Especially if you're doing the project like I'm doing it. I'm going to go to my mahogany here, and I'm going to do my chimney in some various different kind of brick colors. So, and try, you know, form a pattern that looks like bricks. Okay, and then so I got some mahogany there. Maybe I'll go with some of this darker brown in between all this. That's funny how it came out that way. Okay, and then in the middle of that, I'll probably go with some of the tan, I suppose. Maybe all this up here will be tan, like sandstone. That top is, you know, one solid piece of usually stone, carved stone. Alright, that looks pretty good. That reads as a chimney, I believe. Alright, so I'm going to try to figure out some things with the trim on my house. And I really do like this mahogany color. And I probably won't be able to use much of it because I'll run out of it when I make the drawing bigger. But I'm going to use this mahogany, this reddish brown color, as the trim work on my house. And see, as long as I stick with some of these colors that I don't use a great deal, then I'll preserve them a little bit more. But if you've already, you know, let's say when we enlarge this, if you've already used a blue down to almost nothing and you want your car to be blue, you're going to really struggle with that. So my advice to you is, you know, give the colors that you've been neglecting a little bit more attention. As long as it works into your color scheme. Okay, I'm making pretty good progress here. So it usually takes like 2 or 3 sessions to finally get the paper drawn and get everybody on to the project, and then we'll draw for several days, and then once we're done with that drawing, then it's time to look at this worksheet that we made and start matching it with your colors after we get the drawing all cleaned up. So this trim that goes around the doors and windows also is going to be mahogany as well, kind of an eggplant color in some ways, which I really think is good. It's a nice color for houses. Okay. Oh, and you know, I decided I was going to put an oval-shaped window in this, or maybe one of these windows, a fan-shaped window. I think that would look pretty good too. So if I did one of these like this. Yeah, a little curved surface in there would, I suppose, be nice. And then I can simply just, you know, divide this like this. You've probably seen windows like this before. Okay, well that's going to look kind of nice in there. Alright, and let's see, we've still got a mahogany trim over here to this window. Probably the window above it's going to have some marking, and that may be this one up in here. This, we can see just a peeking of it underneath the windshield. I like that. It really makes it look realistic, like it's when you can see through it. Okay, so we'll put this here, and this also will be part of that, and this also will be part of that. Okay, so see, things start to come together pretty quickly here. I think I'm going to go with some of this cerulean blue, or this sky blue as they call it in Crayola talk, right here in the windows. I'm not going to put any interior details in the windows. Although you could, but this project's going to be difficult enough without having to resort to making it any more difficult for ourselves. Okay, so it's going to keep on keeping on here, working on until we just dial in the whole thing, and then we'll be down to, you know, coloring in the car. So it just kind of develops on its own if you let it. Okay, so goes along rather rapidly right here. Looking pretty good if you ask me. I'm pretty happy with the results so far. So I think I'm just going to maybe, you know, I've been thinking about using yellow for the color of the car. And if I do that, then the color in the background would have to be some other color. But I'm thinking the house with this kind of mahogany colored trim, maybe there's a color in here somewhere that I could choose. Maybe a greenish color, or maybe aqua color, or magenta won't look good, but the aqua green might be okay. So I'm going to have to sharpen that one up if that's what I pick. Yellow green's a little bit too lime colored, I suppose, and you know, if you're in some areas of the country now orange would be crazy, and red is not going to work either. So I think I'm just going to go with aqua, and I'll try to keep it simple. Oh, this will look fantastic. Alright, kind of looks like it's in Florida or in some California community near the oceans looking back toward the mountains. Okay, now, that's a good choice. Alright, and I've got quite a bit of the aqua left from the previous project too, so I'm pretty satisfied with that. And it picks up that green in the background. Now when these are opaquely colored in, they will get a much different kind of appearance. And I do think I'm going to go with a yellow color, probably that golden yellow on my car. And I think I'm going to try to find myself. Now if you can't find a like a silver or a legit gold colored pencil, you could use golden yellow. Works great for substituting for gold. And then you could probably get away with using gray for chrome. It'll just look a little bit like it's dirty chrome, I suppose, but it could be worse. But gray is usually a pretty decent substitute for silver or chrome. Alright, so this is coming together quicker than I had thought. Okay. Well, I hope everybody's project so far is coming along, and that the design units got wrapped up, and you know, the quizzes are done and turned in, and the projects are finished and self-graded and turned in. And so we've been, even though these are e-lessons or makeup lessons in some cases of some students, well, then that's the environment we got to work in for a while till things change. Oh, this down here is all. And I forgot some mahogany right there, just on the bottom of that windowsill. That's not like me to skip over details like that. That's usually not my way. Okay, let's find that mahogany again. It's got to be in here somewhere. And put that bottom portion of that trim in there. There we go. Okay, and right here, I missed this part. Always going back and, you know, reviewing what you've done, trying to be self-critical about it if you can, and not be too harsh on yourself is always a good idea. Okay, I'm moving on to my door right now, and then maybe even the curtains after that. So I'm going to call this door a light brown color. I'm going to treat it as though it is made of wood. I may wait to see what I'm going to do with the little panes in my window, my little fan-shaped window there on the door. But for now, I'm just going to go with light brown here to signify some wood grain there. Probably some, what would be a good color for the curtains? Probably some sort of like a red, orange, or a peach color, maybe. Maybe pink. Maybe pink. Maybe pink. There's a color that I don't use. Well, that's going to look stupid. Maybe peach. Let's try that. Okay, yeah, that'll work. Peach. Peach it is. At least for my curtains. And peach doesn't get used much anyway, so you gotta throw it in there sometime, give it some attention. Now those little tie backs right there, I'm going to just simply make those black if I can find my black here real quick. So I usually resist saying use black on things, but as long as it's not up against something else that's really dark, then I'm okay with it. So to make sure that our curtains match, and I gotta say, the peach colored curtain is not too bad now that I look at it. Okay, there we go. And again down here, so being able to see past the car, see into the windows a little bit, see through the windshield. These are all little gimmicks that make people want to look at things a little bit longer. They compare things, and it's just a good visual technique to have people looking past and through things and underneath things. Okay, well, we're running out of things to do here, so I'm going to do my aerial right here, and I'm going to make that black. And then I'm going to put the little orb on the end is also going to be black, so it stands out against that building there. I'm going to come back to the flag eventually, but let's see, I know my flames are probably going, well, I'm going to go with this golden yellow for the car right now, and I'm going to just start on that, because I really think this is a fantastic color. I've seen some old school cars. When I drive back and forth to Tennessee a lot, I see people with their old school cars, and it makes me jealous a lot of times. Alright, this is coming along. And this is the space, this is the top of the door, so we can't really see down into the car very much. Excuse me. My voice is ragged. I talk every day for all these videos I'm producing. It wears me down. But coloring is restorative. It makes you feel better. Probably going to go with like some red-orange flames, because I've still got a lot of that red-orange left. And so when I am making my plans, a lot of times I tend to go toward the colors that I've neglected. Yeah, yellow car. I built a model once of an old truck when I was a child, and it was this kind of really bright golden, not quite banana yellow. It was just a real deep yellow color. I wonder where that thing is. I wonder if I've still got it somewhere. If I do, it's lasted probably 50 years. Okay, that's a stripe, so I'm trying to not color over top of the stripes. See, that's the part that we're trying to avoid at this stage. Okay, and this is the bottom part of the car, and this little scrap right here is the bottom of the car. So that little sway bar in there is between us and the bottom of the car. Okay, over here on the other side of the pipes. So this is, see, starting to come together here. There's a plan at work here. And we're going to work that plan. I'm going to plan my work. I'm going to work my plan. And you know what? Nobody ever plans to fail. They just fail to plan. Get it? So, and even when you plan, stuff goes wrong. So that's, you know, a plan is no perfect solution, but it beats trying to get along without one. That's all I can say. Alright, so in just the period of a couple of class sessions, it looks like an idea has been developed. The project is being planned out. I don't know what has been in the background of your drawing, but if you have chosen to go with what I'm doing here, then you can simply just follow along with me. Now, in your if you put something different in the background, well, then you can work along with me, but while I'm working on my background, you should be working on yours. When I'm working on the car, you should maybe follow along with what I'm doing at that point also. So these are instructional videos, but they're also demonstrative videos, okay? I kind of got this idea from, believe it or not, watching Bob Ross videos. Simply his planning technique and the way that he makes his artwork is fascinating to me. Alright, we're going to go with some dark brown right here on our seat. And that dinger tells me that our class time here is up. And as a result of that, in the next session, well, I might just spend a couple more minutes here getting my flames set up here real quick. And then in our next session, maybe do some of the finishing touches on this piece right here on the planning work, and then lay out our piece of paper and then start drawing the project in. And that's what we will be doing for several more days after that. That can really, the drawing of it will take, we'll have to see. This is a tedious process sometimes. But this part right here gets you in the right frame of mind, gets you a good idea, a mental picture of what your project's going to look like. And that's a good thing, because now you can kind of work toward that plan. So planning, I'm a big believer in it, and if you take art in high school or if you take art in college, you're going to be required to have a plan for your work, and you usually show that in your sketchbook. And if you don't have a plan, then you're going to be kind of chastised, and it affects your grades. And you know, everybody that takes art in high school and college doesn't necessarily, succeed at it, especially if they're not willing to, do the work, and if their work comes out looking as though it was unplanned. Okay, I think that's enough for today. It's been a very successful session, so let's get back again tomorrow. Have a nice day.